welcome Matt and Kendall Hagee.
Hello and welcome to The Difference. Today we're discussing strength and determination.
Yes, that's right. One of my favorite scripture is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through God who strengthens me. So that means when you are weak, He is strong. And no matter how tough it gets, His word is always true and will never return void. I can and I will do all things through Him that gives me strength.
Absolutely. Today we're going to be speaking with two individuals who absolutely capture the context of what we're speaking about, strength and determination. Right. Our guests today are Missy Jenkins Smith, a survivor of a tragic school shooting, and Edie Sundby, a cancer survivor and author of the book, The Mission Walker. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
Dear Pastor Hagee, I just wanted to write you to say how honored Rayla Jean and I are to have been partners in your ministry all these years, and to see all the amazing things you've accomplished around the world with the gifts we and others like us have gladly given over the years. Furthermore, it has been so refreshing to see younger generations coming on board to partner with you in spreading Christ's message to the world.
I want to welcome you both to partnership with John Hagee Ministries. Together, we will make a great impact for Christ around the world.
May God continue prospering you in all your endeavors, your dear friends, Ron and Rayla Jean.
I want to thank you, our Salt Covenant partners, for making it possible for us to preach the gospel to the nations of the world. Thank you and God bless you.
Become a Salt Covenant partner today. Call the toll-free number on the screen or visit us online at jhm.org.
What you see is a child reaching for her mother. There is nothing more beautiful than for a child to know that they're loved. There are thousands of children who are reaching for someone who will not reach back because they're not there. This is the reason we're building the Sanctuary of Hope. I want you to help me help these children have a mother that will take care of them, that will love them, that when they cry in the night, someone will come. When they get hungry, someone will feed them. When it comes time to teach them the way of the Lord, that someone will be there. And together, with the Sanctuary of Hope, we can make this happen. God bless you for all that you do to make the Sanctuary of Hope a reality.
Help give the gift of life. Call the number on the screen or visit jhm.org.
Enjoy watching The Difference but want a more behind-the-scenes look? Learn interesting facts about our guests, comment on our segments, and find out more about the show by following Matt and Kendall on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Keep watching The Difference and follow us on social media to find out more.
Edie Sundby and her husband had just mortgaged their home to start a new business when she received the devastating diagnosis, stage 4 cancer. And with strength and determination, she not only lived to tell about it, she broke a world record in the process. Please help me welcome Edie.
Hello, Edie. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, you know, we're talking about strength and determination today. You went through an experience that really would have taken strength from just about anybody's life and given them all kinds of reason to quit. Tell us about the day that you heard you had 3 months to live.
You know, it's amazing because time kind of stands still and you just remember everything about it. It's almost like you detach from the whole situation. And I was by myself. My husband was in putting a programming team together out of the country, and my kids were off school, and so I was just kind of, getting ready for the next phase of my life, with the children just off to college, and we started discovering a few things that were amiss physically, and I went into a doctor. We did an ultrasound, we did scans, and then the doctor said, and I hadn't seen a doctor for 20 years, and this was a stranger to me. I didn't even know this doctor, and he called me in, and he said, we need to talk. And so I went in, and he wanted to know where my family was, and I said, well, I'm by myself. And he was very hesitant to tell me. He was very hesitant to talk to me. And I encouraged, though, because I enjoy the truth. I deal very well with facts.
Let's get on with it.
Exactly. Because the truth and the facts are not nearly as frightening sometimes as the
not knowing.
Knowing. And so he said, you have cancer. And it's like, me?
Yes.
Because I was arrogantly healthy. I mean, I'm talking about organic food. I'm talking about, I hadn't had a French fry in years, and a milkshake. Well, maybe I'd had a milkshake, but I never would have put cream on top.
This information belongs to other people. I did everything right.
Exactly, I did everything right. Yeah. And so, and I remember I asked one question, because in the back of my mind, it's like, I knew nothing about cancer, but the question I asked is, has it spread? Because I knew that, if you have cancer, there's cancer with a small c, and then there's cancer with a big C, and the difference is, has it spread? Yeah. Because if it hasn't spread, I had family situations. It's curable. It's pretty much incurable at a stage 1, stage 2. But when it's spread, it's incurable. And so, and he shook his head and he said, yes, it's spread. And I said, well, what, where, how much? And he said, we don't know the origin. He said, because you have cancer all over you, actually. And then he opened up and he started sharing with me, because he wanted me to understand the gravity of the situation. He said, you need to get your family here. You need to get them here now. And I said, well, how much cancer is there? And he said, it's all over. And he said, there is a 21 centimeter tumor in your abdomen that's very predominant. And I said, well, how big is 21 centimeters? And he said, and I may be getting this wrong, the centimeters, but he said 7 inches. I remember he said 7 inches. And I have a 7 inch, and that was the whole total of my abdomen. Yeah. The tumor was that big. And so I was just fixated on this and fixated. Yes, and so... What does a person say? What does a doctor say?
How do you respond to that?
And how do you respond? You just kind of go numb. And, he was more awkward, I think, than I was, actually. And I understood the gravity of the situation. I knew I had to get my family home. And so I just found my way out to the car, and I got in my car, and I drove off. But I stopped within a few minutes. I had to pull over to the side of the road, because I had to connect with God, because the only way I could really deal with the moment was to take a deep breath and actually to go inside and quiet everything. And that's where I find God, is inside when it's quiet. And so I pulled over alongside the road, and everything was so beautiful. In fact, from the minute I walked out of the doctor's office, the world was just so beautiful. It was just, and I was just filled I was overwhelmed with wonder and overwhelmed with the beauty of it.
You had a brand new perspective on life.
Totally. It's like, how can I leave this?
Yeah, you mentioned connecting with God. It really is where the source of strength in those seasons of struggle come from, because there are people who receive less graphic news, and yet they've made the decision, this is the end of my life. You received news that you didn't have but maybe a few months to live, and decided, this is not the end of my life, and really found yourself starting to live life anew. But it was because you made a decision to connect at a place where supernatural strength comes from, rather than just try to make this battle on your own. Now, that supernatural strength led you on a mission walk. What is a mission walk?
Well, you know, I knew that I had to move. I knew I had to move my body if I was going to live. And because you have so much chemo, you have so many surgeries, you have so many physical traumas, but the body has a way of wanting to move and heal itself, even in the worst of possible times. And I started to move. I started to walk immediately. That first day, actually, I went for a walk. That was how I dealt with it. And even with chemo, the worst possible chemo, I kept walking. And it took 5.5 years to get it under control. 79 rounds of chemo, almost 1 million milligrams of chemo. I had 4 major surgeries. I've had surgery in my liver, in my throat, in my colon, my stomach, and then I had in my lung. In fact, they took my right lung out. And when they took my right lung out is when I started walking seriously, because I knew if I wanted to have a healthy, vibrant life, I would have to overcome the fact
you'd
that
have
I
to
had
physically grow in strength. Now, when you say
Exactly.
walking seriously, this isn't a lap around the block. What is serious walking?
Because I always walk about 4 miles, 3.5 or 4 miles a day. But I knew I had to walk away from cancer, the horror of it, and I had to walk to heal my body, but also to heal emotionally and to reconnect with spirit. And so I started walking the old California Mission Trail. And there are 21 missions up the coast and the valleys across the mountains up to California. There's 21 of them. And I started in San Diego, and I walked for 55 days. And I walked on average 15 miles a day. And at the end of the 55 days, one step at a time, I was at the end of the mission trail.
Now, this mission trail, 55 days, what's the
800
total?
miles.
How
800. Well, 796.4.
We'll give you the balance of them. I mean, yes. That's a remarkable feat. And you know, when you began this journey, it was for your personal reasons to reconnect with life. But you actually wound up, breaking a record. How long had that record been in place?
Well, what I actually did once I got there, and then when it came back into my remaining lung 2 years later, the old mission trail in California doesn't start in San Diego. California used to start in Mexico.
Yeah.
So the mission trail actually starts in Laredo, Mexico. And so when it came...
Laredo, like in Texas?
Laredo, Mexico.
Yeah.
Loredo, Mexico, way down,
Yeah, I know right where
1,000 miles south of the border.
That's where the good chips are.
Yeah. And so I came back in my left lung, and I knew if I wanted to finish my mission walk, I had to do it, and I wanted to do it immediately. And so I went across the border to Tijuana, got a plane, went down to Loreto, again by myself, and I had only the promise of a vaquero for a week, and I had a promise of a pack mule for 10 days. And so I went down, and I just kind of figured...
Those aren't really big promises in Mexico,
But, after cancer, it's like...
Everything's a borrowed day.
You don't have anything to lose, And so, I went down, and it was just, I believe in just... letting go and flowing, let go, let God, and just flow with the whole mystery of it and the adventure of it. And that's what really makes life profound. And it got my mind off cancer completely. Let me tell you, the cactus patch down there. Yeah, and so it was another 800 miles. And so, again, 2 months and from Loreto, Mexico to the California border. So from Loreto to the California border was 800 miles.
And then from San Diego all the way up.
Was another 800. That's 1,600 miles. And that no one has really done that for about 200 years. The old mission trail is almost obliterated under cactus and erosion down in Mexico. And it took 20 cowboys, 20 vaqueros, and about 30 demented, cantankerous mules to get us through the Sierras. There's 6 Sierras, and there's the Sonoran Desert, where there's not a drop of water for hundreds of miles.
This is not wonderful terrain. No. This is very extreme conditions, but you did it, and you did it for the sake of celebrating life, not losing life. It's a story of inspiration. You've recorded it in your book, The Mission Walker. And I believe that this story has inspiration to share with each and every reader who gets it. I encourage you to do that. Edie, thank you for coming and sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
We've got more stories about strength and determination in just a few moments. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Enjoy watching The Difference but want a more behind-the-scenes look? Learn interesting facts about our guests. Comment on our segments. And find out more about the show by following Matt and Kendall on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Keep watching The Difference and follow us on social media to find out more.
Dear Pastor Hagee, I just wanted to write you to say how honored Rayla Jean and I are to have been partners in your ministry all these years, and to see all the amazing things you've accomplished around the world with the gifts we and others like us have gladly given over the years. Furthermore, it has been so refreshing to see younger generations coming on board to partner with you in spreading Christ's message to the world.
I want to welcome you both to partnership with John Hagee Ministries. Together, we will make a great impact for Christ around the world.
May God continue prospering you in all your endeavors. Your dear friends, Ron and Rayla Jean.
I want to thank you, our Salt Covenant partners, for making it possible for us to preach the gospel to the nations of the world. Thank you, and God bless you.
Become a Salt Covenant partner today. Call the toll-free number on the screen or visit us online at jhm.org.
What you see is a child reaching for her mother. There is nothing more beautiful than for a child to know that they're loved. There are thousands of children who are reaching for someone who will not reach back because they're not there. This is the reason we're building the Sanctuary of Hope. I want you to help me help these children have a mother that will take care of them, that will love them, that when they cry in the night, someone will come. When they get hungry, someone will feed them. When it comes time to teach them the way of the Lord, that someone will be there. And together, with the Sanctuary of Hope, we can make this happen. God bless you for all that you do to make the Sanctuary of Hope a reality.
Help give the gift of life. Call the number on the screen or visit jhm.org.
Joining us now on The Difference is Missy Jenkins Smith. She's a survivor of one of the first school shootings in the United States. Missy, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And, you know, our topic today is strength and determination, and you've written a book giving us the insight to your story, I Choose to Be Happy.
Yes.
And that statement right there is certainly a message of strength and determination to anyone who goes through a struggle, but your struggle came on you out of circumstances that,
1997.
you know, in 97, unfortunately, school shootings are something that people kind of have heard a lot about in years since then. But in 97, they were unheard of.
Yeah, I'd never been familiar with anything like that happening in a high school anywhere. It was something that I could not at 15 even believe would happen in a school. Yeah, my school that I attended, Heath High School, it was a safe one. We didn't have locks in our lockers. We trusted each other. It was a very small school, so everyone knew everyone. And there was no reason for me to ever think that something such as that could happen in my school. And it was a shock when it did.
Yeah, and so on this day, you were wounded, and that wound changed your life forever.
It definitely did. I was only 15, and just that month, it was December the 1st, just that month, me and my twin sister were going to turn 16. And we were so focused on, we're going to get our permit, getting driver's license. Those are the things we were worried about, not about a school shooting. But we went to school and had always, I guess every day of my sophomore year that year, me and my twin sister had been attending a prayer circle. And this prayer circle to us was a good way for us to start our day off. But we never knew that that was where something like this could happen. We never really thought to ourselves that we were ever invincible. You know, as a teenager, you never really think of anything bad happening to you. So I really honestly lived my life that way. I never once thought that, you know, those things happen to other people. But that morning when nothing seemed out of the ordinary, I, you know, went to prayer circle like I always did right before school started. This was right after Thanksgiving break. And nothing still seemed out of the ordinary until after we said amen, I had at least just enough time to walk to the middle of the lobby on the way to get my backpack for my first class, and that's when I heard the first shot. I didn't see him with the gun, but what I did see was a girl get shot in the head. But as I stood there and I stared at her, the very first thing I could only think to myself was that this is a joke. Because, you know, anyone at any age seeing something like this, you know, can't believe. Exactly, you don't know how to process it. And so
this is
I
not
thought,
a war zone, this is a school.
Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't belong here.
Exactly.
So I don't know where to place it.
Exactly. And even the noise of a gun, I'd never heard a gun in person. The TV was the only place I'd ever heard a gun. So the noise sounded like firecrackers. And so again, I thought it was a joke. So I stood there, waited for her to get up, and that's when I was shot. And the whole feeling just basically would never have been any way I would have ever described being shot would be like, but my experience was almost like fainting. And so when I fell down to the ground, and even the impact of hitting the ground didn't hurt, but as I lay there, my twin sister, who knew what was happening, she crawled over to me, and she hovered over me while he was still shooting. But when it finally ended, when the shots ended, that's whenever I was able to question her, because I could tell she knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And that's when she told me what happened and who did it. And that's when I knew at that point that I'd been shot. But I also couldn't believe that the person that she said did this was the person who did it. He would have been the last person I would have ever said could have been capable of this.
And so you find yourself in horrific circumstances.
Definitely,
and circumstances that obviously changed your entire existence.
It did.
At an age where you had so many different things that you were considering.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks would have gone through that and said, you know what, life's over.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Well, you know, I think it was just that morning, there was a lot that kind of happened that was kind of unfolding in front of my eyes. One of the things that my twin sister did leave the lobby just because she was overwhelmed, but she was able to go into the detached gym outside the school. And whenever I speak to kids, I do a lot of speaking now to help prevent violence, and I have to explain that the ancient piece of equipment she used to call my parents was a payphone, which you can't carry around with you. Exactly. And then I also say cell phones existed, but she used that to call my parents. So that was a miracle in itself. She called and was able to give my parents peace of mind that I was talking when she left me. She was able to tell them everything, and for them not to hear it from TV or anyone else. So that was a miracle. Once I was on the ground and by myself, my teacher came to me, my algebra teacher I had that year. I'm also bad at math, so my algebra teacher, she was my teacher I had, and I was the student that hid in her class because I didn't want to answer the algebra question. But she came down beside me and she started to pray. And that's when I really started questioning what was going to happen to me. And I asked my teacher, am I going to die? And she said, no, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. And that's when I then told her, I said, I know I'm paralyzed because I can't feel my stomach. I can't feel my legs. I am paralyzed from the chest down. So it's like right below my chest down. So I was trying to describe this to her, but she kept telling me, no, you're just in shock. But I know that as who she was a teacher. She was trying to comfort me. She was trying to keep me from going into shock. And also to explain this to a 15-year-old girl was probably very difficult.
And something that they didn't teach her.
Exactly.
They didn't train her for this in college.
Exactly. And what I noticed about my teachers, I mean, they had to become everything. They had to become police officers. They had to become nurses, doctors, our moms and dads. I mean, we didn't have any of those things in our school, and they just jumped right in those roles. So, you know, it was amazing to see how they were able to adapt to that, and that, to me, was just God in itself. But after my teacher had prayed for me, I then started to get very tired, and I wanted to close my eyes, and she kept telling me, keep your eyes open, don't close them. And I did close them because I got to the point where I couldn't fight it anymore. But when I opened them back up, it was like all of a sudden I had this sense of like calm. Like, I'm gonna be fine, I'm gonna be okay. Once they brought me, the ambulances came and they put me in an ambulance. There was someone else in the ambulance with me they were giving CPR to. And as they were trying to give me a IV, I remember that, and the paramedic was all over the ambulance, and I said, you know, just stop, help that person. Why don't we give me the IV when we get to the emergency room? Like, I was a lot more calm than ever. Before, I was so worried I was gonna die, and all of a sudden, I was okay. But once I got into the emergency room, and they started explaining things to me, and I learned exactly what happened. They told me, at first they thought I was shot twice, but because it was a 22, it was actually once, and it bounced around inside my body. So it it entered through my left shoulder here. It bounced around and missed every major artery and organ inside my body besides my lung and my spinal cord, and it exited out the right side of my back. It didn't go through the back of my shirt, so there was no surgery to have to remove the bullet. And I started thinking about the fact that my heart was right here.
Yeah.
And so how I could have died. And here I was, paralyzed. To me, I started thinking to myself about how I was getting a second chance at life. I was also realizing that I wasn't invincible. And I felt it was a blessing and a gift. And I was being told by God that there's something bigger for you, because I never felt angry. I never felt upset. I felt the sense of, okay, I'll accept this. Now what's next? There's a purpose for this. And I always say that I'm very blessed because at 15, to find your purpose in life is very rare. There's people that are 80 that don't know their purpose. And so I felt like I was learning that. And as time went on, I just kept receiving blessing after blessing. And it was only I could only think that God could do that for me. You know, it wasn't just a miracle. It was just God working and showing me that
He was in some ways answering a prayer of a teacher.
Exactly.
But in another way, saving your life with perspective.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And that perspective is what you've shared. You know, I choose to be happy.
Yes.
That's not a decision you only make on one day. I'm sure you've had to make that decision several days after the fact.
Of course, I get, you go through trials of that every day, but once I go through some of the rough stuff, especially, in the beginning, whenever I found out I could get pregnant and then got ready to have my first child, all those thoughts of, I'm in a wheelchair. How can I be a mother in a wheelchair and take care of this fragile child? And I remember crying the very first day when I brought him home. And then I found out all new moms cry. So I was like, thank goodness, that's normal. And so, but then
sometimes new dads cry too. Put that out there.
Yeah. But I finally got to the point where I was realizing that it was just, because even learning how to use the wheelchair, there was challenges. It was just like learning how to do the wheelchair. It was just repetitive, trying to work at it, keep trying. And we eventually started working together. I was so worried, what was I going to do if my child's on the floor? How in the world am I going to pick him up? And so one day he started crawling over to me, and he pulled up on my knees, and then I was able to pick him up under his arms and set him in my lap. So we just worked together. And he knows how to get away from mama too, so.
The scripture that we mentioned in the beginning of our program, I can do all things through Christ. Most of the time, people think that that's set aside for certain and special circumstances. Some days it's set aside for the everyday circumstances that you just have to believe God to give you the strength to get through. An individual who's gotten through a lot of those circumstances is Miss Missy. And I thank you for coming on our program today, sharing your story, for the work you're doing now to encourage young people to understand and take care of each other. Each of us have a role to play in strengthening one another and being determined that every day can be better. Thank you for watching The Difference.